August 455, the second sack of Rome was winding down. The Vandals, once one of many tribes between Rhine and Danube, were now in control of the richest province in the west. A multitude of kingdoms appeared in former imperial territories. The economy was in agony. Almost every institution was in decline. It was a time of change. For the Roman leadership, every action was now a fight for survival. After a month of interregnum, the next emperor was to be Avitus. With Visigothic support, he was proclaimed Augustus and entered Rome. This man soon grew unpopular. Being from the Gallic nobility and promoting the latter, he was not truly recognized by the Italians. Plus, having difficulties to pay his gauths, he used the bronze from public buildings to do it. During his rule, a Germanic high officer named Ricimer drove out the Vandals from Sicily and Corsica, victories for which he became Magister Militum. Profiting from the discontent, the general revolted alongside a colleague named Majorian. The Visigoths were in Hispania fighting against the Suebians. Thus, Avitus met Majorian and Ricimer in battle alone. Of those 3 veterans of Aetius, Avitus lost and was deposed. Taking advantage of the situation, an Alemannic army crossed the Alps. Majorian intercepted and defeated them. After that, he became the Western Emperor. Earlier that year saw an imperial succession in the east as well. The powerful general Aspar chose Leo as the new head of state. The Eastern Emperor recognized the elevation of Majorian. In southern Italy, Vandalic troops were pillaging the countryside. Majorian expelled them from the peninsula. He was energetic, talented, and determined to fight against the odds of his time. He took several actions to make taxation fairer and more efficient, while regaining the trust of both Gallic and Italian aristocracies by promoting the two. With the heart of the empire secured, Majorian, despite the treasury being almost empty, managed to recruit an army of federati troops while rebuilding a navy. Crossing the Alps into Gaul, he crushed the Visigoths, who submitted to imperial power. Going north, he reconquered the Burgundian-occupied city of Lugdunum. Those victories allowed him to solidify Roman positions and firmly reconnect with the Gallic territories. In Hispania, Roman control of the province was reasserted. After that, imperial troops fought a successful campaign against the Suebians. The final goal of the emperor was, of course, the reconquest of Africa. To achieve it, he prepared his fleet, aiming to strike at the heart of the problem. Gaiseric knew what was coming. His enemy threatened to put an end to his kingdom. In a surprise attack, while preparations were still ongoing, the Vandals destroyed the Roman fleet. This defeat dealt a severe blow to Majorian's plans, and he returned to Italy. While the emperor was campaigning, Ricimer, disgruntled by the fact that he wasn't able to control the emperor, had been plotting against Majorian. The more power the Augustus exercised, the less influence his Magister Militum had. Majorian, not knowing about the plot, was captured and later executed. Such an event was heavy of consequence. During the following years, the reconquests of Majorian were all rolled back. In the Balkans, the Ostrogoths attacked Illyricum, and to reach peace terms, extracted tribute from the Eastern Romans. Ricimer wanted a puppet emperor on the throne, one that would allow him to be the man in charge. After a few months, he chose Libius Severus. Aegidius and Marcellinus, 2 Roman generals loyal to Majorian, seceded from central authority. Ricimer decided to take action against the former, asking the Visigoths to attack him. At Aurelianum, the Gallic Romans and their Frankish allies repelled the invaders. The Vandals, for their part, resumed their attacks, seizing the Mediterranean islands. When Libius Severus died, there was more than a year of interregnum. No emperor was appointed during this period, and Ricimer ruled over Italy in the name of the Eastern Augustus. Leo put forward his own candidate, Anthemius. Once this man arrived in Italy, Ricimer accepted the new ruler. With Ravenna and Constantinople once again on good terms, the Eastern Emperor invested large amounts of resources for a massive expedition against the Vandals. This large-scale military operation had three components. The Southern Army arrived in Tripolitania and made progress. The northern flank, led by the Westerners, reconquered the islands. The main force arrived in Africa, but due to a severe strategic blunder, the fleet was ambushed by Gaiseric and suffered massive casualties. The surviving troops retreated and the expedition was aborted. With the failure of such an expensive operation, no longer would the East directly intervene. The Western Romans were now on their own. During his reign, Leo created a new palace guard, the Excubitos. But his main concern was the dominance of military commanders of barbarian origins, such as Aspar. He reduced their influence by recruiting many Isaurians from the Anatolian mountains. One of them, Zeno, discovered that Ardabur, son of Aspar, had been sending letters to the Sasanians, inviting them to invade. After he reported this to Leo, Zeno married his daughter Ariadne. Aspar, of course, was discontented by the gradual Isaurian replacement, but in 471 he and his son were killed. The strongest general in the empire was now, without any doubt, Zeno. The failed anti-Vandal expedition did not discourage Anthemius, who launched a restoration campaign in Gaul, but it came to nothing. The Goths and their new king Euric repelled the Romans. By that time, relations between Ricimer and Anthemius became hostile. Some semblance of stability was maintained for a time, before Ricimer marched on Rome and elevated Olybrius as emperor. After a siege, his army entered the city and killed Anthemius. Ricimer would not long outlive him. He died weeks later. Olybrius reigned for only a few months. After him came Glycerius. Italy was threatened by both branches of the Goths. First, a Visigothic army was pushed back. Then, an Ostrogothic invasion was neutralized through bribes. Leo did not recognize the new Western Augustus and decided to support Julius Nepos instead. The latter marched on Italy from Dalmatia. Glycerius decided to abdicate and was exiled in Salona. Leo died during this time, and his right-hand man, Zeno, became co-emperor alongside his son, Leo II. Nepos's efforts in Gaul allowed Rome to maintain control over Ars for a time. But his replacement of the former Magister Melitum of the province by Orestes was a mistake. This man soon rebelled against the emperor, and Nepos fled to Dalmatia. Orestes decided to put his own son, Romulus Augustulus, on the imperial throne. In the eastern capital, Zeno learned about a plot in which he was the target. It was initiated by Verina, widow of Leo, and Basiliscus, the commander of the failed expedition against the Vandals. Seeking safety, he left Constantinople. Thus, Basiliscus seized power, slaughtered the Isaurians in the capital, and elevated his son, Marcus, as co-emperor. Illus was sent to capture Zeno, but soon, Basiliscus's popularity fell apart. First, because he increased taxes, and second, because he bent toward monophysitism. The opposite happened to Zeno, who regained support and, after Illus rallied to his side, returned to Constantinople and secured his throne. In Italy, Orestes was killed by a rebellious commander named Odoacer. The Vector went to meet the young Romulus Augustulus and deposed him from the imperial position. He sent the imperial regalia to Constantinople, declaring the end of the succession line in Italy. Along with that, he symbolically submitted to the authority of the Eastern Emperor. Zeno accepted this state of affairs, but requested from Odoacer the recognition of Julius Nepos as Western Emperor. Gaiseric, a man who had reigned as king of the Vandals for 50 years, finally died. With Attila, Alaric, and many others who came before, he immortalized himself as one of the greatest enemies of Rome. The dissolution of the Hunnic realm drove some Goths to migrate inside the empire. Thus, two men, Theodoric Strabo, imperial official and leader of the Thracian Goths, and Theodoric Diamal, leader of the Pannonian Goths and a former hostage in Constantinople, were a constant source of problems for Zeno. He attempted to turn them against each other several times, notably asking Diamal to attack Strabo with the promise of Roman assistance. This operation never truly materialized. Marcian, son of the former Western Augustus Anthemius, and grandson of the former Eastern Augustus, also named Marcian, revolted against Zeno. After some fighting in the capital, his usurpation was quelled. He was exiled in Cappadocia, but once there, he continued to be a problem and managed to revolt a second time. Nevertheless, his second rebellion was put down. Theodoric Strabo had supported Marcian. Now he was actively fighting against imperial forces. He tried to besiege Constantinople for a short time. Seeing that success was unattainable, Strabo retreated while eventually pillaging the countryside. Unfortunately for the Goths, this is where he died in an accident. The Thracian Goths were no longer a problem, but some of them joined the Amal. The remaining Theodoric spent the following years invading Greece. After the deposition of Romulus, Julius Nepos, who had remained emperor and ruler in Dalmatia, was assassinated by members of his court. Odoacer took over the province. The Council of Chalcedon had largely divided the Christian population of the empire in two main groups. The Chalcedonians supported the council, while the Monophysites rejected it. Zeno's concern was to reunite these two groups. With Acacius, Patriarch of Constantinople, he produced the Enoticon. This document was made to reconcile both religious views, but it did not satisfy everyone. The Pope, Felix III, rejected it and started the Acacian Schism with Constantinople. Illus, the Isaurian general, was one of the main political figures in the capital. However, he had never really been on good terms with the emperor. He became the target of multiple assassination attempts conducted by Verina. The latter was taken prisoner in the east for her actions, but even then, the plots continued. Illus decided to defect and start his own rebellion, while keeping Verina prisoner. He promoted to the throne a man named Leontius. After some initial successes against Zeno, the usurper's army was defeated by a Romano-Ostrogothic force which included Theodoric. After a long siege in Cilicia, Leontius and Illus were killed. In Gaul, the coronation of a new king, Clovis, ended cordial relations between Syagrius and the Franks. In 486, at the Battle of Soissons, the last stronghold of Roman resistance was conquered. Zeno's and Theodoric's rivalry was drawing no conclusion. When hostilities restarted, the Eastern Emperor was looking for a clear solution. As relations between Zeno and Odoacer had declined, the former asked Theodoric to invade Italy. This offer was gladly accepted by the king. Entering the peninsula, Theodoric won several battles and, after an extended siege of Ravenna, killed Odoacer and conquered Italy. For his part, having reigned through constant upheaval, Zeno died, seemingly from an illness. By the end of the 5th century, imperial power completely disappeared in the western Mediterranean. Some military leaders had attempted several resurgencies of power and had succeeded to a degree. Majorian incarnated this effort. Despite this, after centuries of decline, Rome had finally fallen. New kingdoms had formed to replace it, and would now be the main actors of Western Europe's history. As dramatic of a fall it was for their civilization, the Romans now looked east. The turbulent past decades gave way to a new era. Constantinople and its empire continued their existence and were about to experience a new golden age.